Good morning. How are you all today? How did you get on with yesterday's challenge, day one, making a starter like this? I'm really looking forward to seeing your pictures. I know that you can be a bit embarrassed and just thinking that everyone else's are going to be better than yours, but I can assure you they're not. And it would just be wonderful to see how you're all getting on. So do post your pictures, put them up in the group or in the comments so that I can see how you're doing. So yesterday we made a starter, which is the hardest bit. So if you've managed this, you're just streaks away. You're well ahead and you'll be rolling with this. So today I'm just going to go over the basic stitching because that's what you're doing most of the time when you're making a skep, is just this basic stitching, and just talking through a few tips. I'll probably show you again how to replace some cane when you run out of the cane. And if you've got any questions, type them in the comments so that I can see. I'll be checking them every now and again just to see if there are any questions. And I suppose the main thing to remember is this is all about having fun. It's a way of reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with traditional crafts, ancient skills that are transferable. I was talking with somebody yesterday who picked up when I said that this is a transferable skill, and how you don't have to be using straw. You could be using any kind of dried materials. You could even be twisting together rope, or you could be finding old rags. You could strip rags and twist them together like a rope, and then using something sharp, a big needle, or I don't know, even chopsticks perhaps, just to thread through so that you can tie and bind each piece together. So this is what it's all about. It's about learning a skill, and when you're learning, you learn better when you make mistakes. So it's absolutely fine to have a wonky skep, to have something that looks scruffy. Doesn't matter at all, because that's how you learn. If it all goes swimmingly well and perfect first time, then you probably will come unstuck when you start to do another one and then you find you have problems. So today I'm going to show you the basic stitching and also talk about shaping your skep and the different shapes you can have. So I showed you yesterday a flat topped one, and then I also showed you how you can curve them, or how you can have curved ones. So this one's slightly curved, this will be a sun hive. And then you can even have domed ones like this one here. This is a mini one, but it's domed. And you have absolute control over how you do that. So it's all in how you stitch it. So now I've got my napkin ring. Oh, I even had, I think it's Helen, isn't it, who's got the same napkin ring. So that was easy. So she knows exactly what to use. So before you start, make sure you're set up somewhere comfortable. It can get messy. I have got bits of straw all over the floor here. A water sprayer is really handy so that you can keep your straw damp. I've got a squeaky one. I soaked my cane yesterday and it's not too dry, so I'm just using the sprayer today. Now you can see that I've actually got quite a bit of space in my napkin ring holder. So the goal is to fill this up, build it up so that it's tight on my napkin ring. So each stitch, I want to add a few pieces of straw. Now you could sit outside in the sunshine. We've got sunshine here today, lovely blue skies, and you could just tidy up your bundle of straw, or you can just do it as you go. I tend to do it as I go, because if I sat outside and tidied up straw, I would never get round to making the skeps. Excuse me. Right, so I'm just going to apply it a bit so it's a bit more flexible, and then I'm going to put this bunch. So what have I got here? I've got quite a few, probably about 10 strands. Most will fall out, as I stitch, but I'm just going to try and thread them in to the middle, because if I thread them around the outside, you're going to start getting the ends sticking out in between your stitches, and you don't want that. So it really is a case of just tucking them inside. So you can see already they're falling out. And each stitch I'm going to add some straw, so gradually it will get thicker and thicker. So when you start again after you've had a break, just check that your stitches are nice and tight, so you can, because as it dries out sometimes it can loosen. So there we go. So I'm just going to pull that nice and tight. Right, so my next stitch, you can see this is where I changed the lapping cane, so I had two. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to come out between those two. So I'm going to go in there and then come out between the next two stitches. So I hope you can see that. And then I pull my lapping cane. It's good not to have too long a piece of cane until you really get going. And then thread that through. And pull it tight. Now where I tied off the last piece, that's come a bit loose, so I'm just going to tuck that back in. So that's this stitch here, which is the old lapping cane. There we go. So pull that tight. And then again, now I've got some stitches quite close together there, but I'm going to go in between and in between the other side. And then pull my cane round. And stitch. And you know, I just love making skeps, and it's just one of those things, whenever I'm doing it, I'm thinking, why don't I do this every day? Because it's so calming. And it's one of those things that it's really good to listen to. I like audiobooks, so I will listen to books. So you can listen to something and you're just absorbed, because you don't have to concentrate too hard. You can go on to autopilot. So here we go. Now you can see my stitches building up here. So now I'm going to go into the next one and then in between the two the other side. And can you see how I'm keeping my fid quite straight, going straight across the binded cane and the binded straw. Oh, I've got to add some more straw. Don't forget that. So you get into a bit of a rhythm eventually. If I tidied up my straw, then that would probably make things a bit quicker. So again, I'm going to tuck it in to the middle, and you'll feel it getting stuck in. You'll feel it, that it goes nice and secure, because you don't want to have too many loose ends. This is why it gets messy, because you have the ones that haven't stuck in just keep falling out. So although you think you're putting in lots of straw, you'll find that you've got lots of straw all around your feet and bits. Right, so I'm going to bend this round and then tuck my cane in, pull it through. So just a basic stitch. And each time you stitch, just have a feel of the previous stitches. Make sure they're nice and tight. Then add some more straw. I'm not having to add quite so much each time because I'm getting a bit thicker. You can see how there's not so much space now in my napkin ring. So I'm just tucking that into the middle. You can see how long it is here. So that's the other thing. When I teach this in groups, you have to be socially distant. So it is actually quite a friendly, in this current climate, exercise to do, because you've got this straw sticking out to one side. And if you've got left-handed people and right-handed people, you need a good meter each side of you, so that you're not poking people in the eyes with some straw. So here we go. Next stitch into the middle between 2 stitches, and then out the other side between 2 stitches. So I'm coming in at an angle between the stitches. Pull the cane round and stitch. Now, if you want a flat topped skep, you just carry on doing this with your fid at the same angle, and making sure that each time you stitch, you're keeping the next bundle of straw on top, level with the last bundle. So you're literally producing a spiral, and that will give you a flat top. Now this hole here, this will be the entrance at the top of the skep, which either the bees will use as an entrance, but you can block it up with a cork or some sticks or grass even. Sometimes I just pick a big bunch of grass and shove it in the top, because then when the bees want it open, they can just push the grass out. If you're transporting bees, if you're using it as a swarm collector, then you want to have something that you can slot in there. But quite often you'll find that champagne corks fit in quite nicely, or you can have you know, perhaps even plastic bottle lids, or you could find a bit of an old bottle. But a good old stick, rummage around, and you'll find something that fits just right. So here we go. Before the next stitch, I'm going to put a bit more straw in. I'm just going to put 2 or 3 in now. And to keep an even looking skep, this is why you use a guide like this, because once you've got it that thickness, if you keep it the same thickness as your guide, then you're always going to have a regular skep. So in between 2 stitches and out between the other 2 stitches. And what this does is eventually it creates a lovely pattern, because all your stitches are lined up. Now you'll find the space between them gets bigger as your spiral gets bigger. You see I've got stitches quite close there, but as my spiral's getting bigger and my straw is getting thicker, the stitches are going wider apart. So you might find later on that you need to add an extra stitch. So all that means is you go in between 2 stitches, and then you just create a stitch, but not as far as if you're going in between the next 2 stitches. But with all things, it's being conscious. It's just watching what you're doing and noticing, being very aware, being mindful of where your fid is going in and where it's coming out the other side. So here we go. I can see my stitches. So I go in between and then I come out the other side. So I go in between and I come out. So here I'm going to go in between here, and I'm going to push it through. And this is why the metal fid is good, because it's got a sharp end. And then I come in between these 2 stitches here. And that's just a good rule of thumb to give you a nice even stitching. And if you feel it's getting a bit angular, if you feel it's no longer looking like a circle, then you can just spray it with some water and mold it with your hands. And you can slide the stitches along. So you see there, I've got a little bit of a sharp edge, but I can slide my stitches one way or another. to actually help. And the ridges, they'll come from when you put in an extra lot of straw. So this is why, again, it's quite good to get into the habit of every stitch doing 3 or 4, and then you'll keep it quite uniform. So I'm just going to give it a little spray. Careful not to spray my computer. This is why, again, it's good to have an apron on so you don't get a wet lap. What I do find, though, is with this, I can tend to get a puddle of water, and then I stand up and it all goes down one side, and then I find I'm sitting in a puddle. So again, it's being mindful. It's just watching what's happening around you. So if you want to have a flat top, you just carry on going round and round. So here we go, into the next one. And in between there, put a few more bits of corn in. Sorry, I keep calling it corn, and it's because when I was at primary school, every harvest time we used to have a farmer come in who would show us how to make a corn dolly, and I could never, I don't know why I could never do it. Either for some reason I got asked to help instead of actually making, or I don't know, but I could never make a corn dolly, but I always think of it as corn. Now see here, this is quite a big stitch because my stitches are wider apart. So what I might do is actually I'm going to unpick that, which is so easy, just pull it out. And what I'll do is I'll do one that's not quite as far. So I'm adding a stitch here. There we go. And that will just make it a bit tighter as it goes, as it grows. Now you can see there I've got an angle, so by pulling the stitch in, it pulls it into shape. There we go. And then you can mould it with your hands. Right, now I'll go back to one in between. There we go. Now I'll just do this one, and then I'll talk to you about curving, how to curve. So there we go. Starts to look a bit more like an ammonite. So you can see it's just a spiral going round and round. You can see each stitch, and as you get bigger, it becomes more of a regular pattern of the stitches. And then what I love is when you look inside, let me see if I can do this, you can start to see that you get a pattern of the stitches. So they follow a sort of a spiral. Just trying to find a way of, oh, there we go. Perhaps you can see that. There we go. That shows it there. So you can see this spiral going round and round, and the stitches all lined up together. Now, as a rule of thumb, you would go out for about 12 or 13 rounds before you'd start curving down if you want a flat top. If you're going to do a skep that fits with a particular type of hive, so I know some people, they want to do a skep brood box and then perhaps put a super from a national hive or a worry hive. So then you want to measure how wide your super box is so that it will sit on the flat top. So with this one, I think a worry hive will probably just about sit on top. A worry eek or a super will sit on top of that. It's wide enough. But obviously what you don't want to find is your box is coming out over the edge, because you'll have a gap, and then either the honey fall out, pests will get in, or the bees will have to propolize that gap to seal it up. So just nothing that a tape measure can't sort out. So there we go. So if you're going to do a flat top, you just carry on with this all weekend. I normally find if you're really focused and you get into a rhythm of it, you could make a skep in about 12 hours. Now, if you, well, on a big size skep like that, so spread over 2 days, maybe 8 hours if you really get going with it. So that's the kind of time you're allowing. But also you don't really want it to end because it's just so therapeutic. Now, if you're doing a curve, so I've got a mild curve here. This is a sun hive, and this is the top of a sun hive. So I actually have a mold that I can stand in this to make sure it's the right size. So it's sort of a former. Now, when I said yesterday that I'm a bit cack-handed, this is what I mean. I'd started curving my my sun hive, but coming towards me instead of going away. So this is the thing to watch, is see where is this coming out. And what I want is to be stitching from the outside, because if I'm stitching on the inside, you can then get into difficulty if you've got a former. So it's having your cane away from you, and then you can stitch from the outside. So what I'm doing here is doing a curve. So I need to add a bit of straw. This has got a bit short. So I'm going to tidy these up a bit. And I'm just going to put that into the guide. Now, some of them will come right the way through. Just going to give it a bit of a spray so it's... So this one, because of my horn guide, it has a narrower base there. So it's not going to be quite as thick as my other one. So I'll have more bands. Now you can probably see here the stitches are lining up. Now what I want to do is have a gentle curve going up. So when I'm looking at it, so you can see there how the stitches are lining up. So they sort of spiral round. So instead of my wheat being right on top of the last row, it comes out a bit, and that's all determined on where you put your fid in. So here, let's tuck in those bits of straw. So again, I'm going to go in halfway between stitches and then come out halfway between the next two stitches. But this time, instead of my fid going straight across, it's going at that angle so that I'm pulling this back towards me. And this is how you get your domed shape. It's all about the angle that you put your fid in. And then you can mold it with your pulling of the stitches and pulling of the straw. So let's pull my... So you can see as I pull it in, it pulls the straw down, rather than if I had this stitch lower, it would then pull that way, and then I would start going straight. So again, it's being mindful, it's watching what happens and just not going too fast, because you can go speeding ahead and then suddenly find that you're flaring out at a funny angle. So it's a case of keeping an eye on what you're doing. So I can go a bit lower down and then again higher up. So I hope you can see just how much my fid is going through. So if you've got any questions, oh, I can see somebody saying you're so clever. This is not clever, but practice makes perfect. And I think the main thing about skep making is it's just fun. It's just fun. It's very therapeutic, And that's what we need at this time of year. We need to have something that we do that calms us, keeps us calm. And what's lovely about basket making is you then feel that you're doing something productive. It's something that can be used, it's important, but it's fun to do. So perhaps some people find that with baking, knitting. I've never been able to get to grips with knitting. I can do it for so long, and then the moment I relax, I forget what I'm doing. Whereas with this, I find I can do it automatically. So here we go. I've got a little ear, some seed heads, so I'm just going to pull them off. You can leave them in and it makes your skep look pretty. In some eyes pretty, in some eyes scruffy. So it depends how you want to look at it. So I've put my fid in, I've added extra straw, and so now I'm going to come round. So I'll tell you something interesting about skeps. When they were used as hives, beehives, they would be cloomed or clomed, two different ways of spelling. And that means coating the outside with a mixture of lime and cow dung. And what that would do is protect it, give it extra insulation, make it a bit more waterproof. Now, this is why you would have the domed shape that we see here, because then the water would run off. If you've got a flat top, it's not going to be so water resistant because you're more likely to get puddles, just like flat roofs. So this is why you would have the curve. Now, in the winter months, because the bees would be more exposed to weather and obviously strong winds, but also theft, because if you're not checking your bees every week, then somebody less scrupulous might come and pinch, because bees had a lot of value. They still do, for pollination and for food, for the honey. And so what they would do is move these skeps into the garden or into the walls of their houses. And all across Britain, there's still thousands of bee bowls. These are bee bowls. And what it would be was you'd have the stone wall of the house and it would have a curve. You might think it looks like somewhere you would stand an ornament, but it was actually big enough to put a skep in so that the bees were in the wall of your house so that you could keep an eye on them. Now, the other thing, and this is what I love about what I do, I was able to travel to Bhutan, and I was really, really lucky to visit the honey houses in South Bhutan. And this is where people build their houses and they have bees in the walls of their homes. Just absolutely amazing. And it coincided, I'm just thinking, I think it was about 6 months before I went, I attended a lecture by an amazing man from the History of Beekeeping Association. And he did this lecture saying about how, 200 years ago and even further back, when people in England would move their hives from their orchards and their farmland and put them into the bowls of their houses, but also they would put them along the footpaths by their front gate. And they know this because of in people's wills, because people would will who their beehives would go to. And they would say, I leave my bees by the gate or my bees in the orchard. So then historians could see where people kept their bees. And the reason they did this was because the bees remained familiar with the beekeeper, because they would see them walking past every day and they would hear their voices and they would be familiar with them. So that then in the spring, in May, when the beekeeper would go to open up the hive, the bees were like, oh, I know who this is. That's not a stranger. And so they wouldn't sting. Now, today, the biggest number of bee stings in the year is in April. And the people who are stung more than anybody else are beekeepers in April. And I believe that there's a bit of a connection there. It's because the bees are left in their apiaries, abandoned by the beekeepers in their snug, warm wooden boxes. They don't see the beekeeper every day or every week. And then suddenly, first warm day, somebody in a big white suit comes up, all unusual smells, all unusual voices, and opens up the hive. And of course, the bees feel a bit under threat. So when I went to Bhutan and I visited the honey houses, what amazed me was they build their houses in a kind of an H shape. So you have the main living quarters, but then you have these walls that come out. So what that does is it gives a kind of undercover area, like a porch, with this wall that comes out either side, and they'll have seats and tables and things in that space as well. But it's in that H wall that they would often have the entrance to the beehives. And so you'll find the bees are flying in and out of their nest right past the front door, right past the entrance to the house. And you'll see children and families barefoot, t-shirts, certainly not in suits, and they're standing right by these bees. So they really are living with the bees. And so anyone who thinks that bees are out to get you, or they're vicious and they're always going to sting you, they haven't lived with the bees. And I think, oh, well, I know that the bees will only sting if they're very threatened, or if you squish them, if you accidentally squish them, and you know that can trigger the sting, or to protect their honey, or to heal the people they sting. So here we go. So I'm creating a bit of a curve here by just putting the fid in at that angle. Can you see? So it's more at 45 degrees rather than straight across. Okay, so if there aren't any questions, this should be enough to get you going. You can re-watch the video, and I'm going to do the next one on Monday morning, and I'll show you then how to finish your skep. So I'm going to be weaving skeps all weekend so that I've got something to show you, to show how to finish a skep. And if you've enjoyed this and you think you need to know a bit more, then I will be launching during the webinar next week. I'm going to be opening up my class, which will be an online class where you'll get lots of videos of every little detail. I'll show you how to make doors, windows for your skeps, and talk more about how you can use your skeps with beekeeping, and just a bit more practice and a bit more one-to-one help. So if you're making a skep, you can show me what you're doing and what your problems are and ask questions. And so during this challenge, if you're sharing your photographs of what you're doing, I'm giving out prizes. So on Wednesday, during the webinar, I'm going to announce the winners of different categories. So there's the person, if there's any of you are more experienced skep makers and you're helping other people with their questions on sharing tips, then you can win a prize. If you've been the first one to finish a skep, then you can win a prize. And then I'm also giving a prize for the most unusual shape. So this does not have to be a practical bee-shaped skep, but it's using these skills and doing something that I think is original and a bit different and interesting. So you could think it's all gone wrong, but I could think it's amazing how you've done that, and just think what you've learned from it, or what we've learned from it. So please share what you're doing, share how you're getting on, ask questions if you've got a problem or you get stuck, then just ask a question and I can help. And I have got kits. I can send them. Obviously, we've got a weekend coming up, so any I send out today will get with you Monday or Tuesday. And then the course starts on the 24th of November. So it would be a really good Christmas present for somebody, because they can do it at any time. It's all recorded. It's all online. It's nice if you can join the opening live session. But other than that, it's all downloadable and available online. So if you know someone who you think would like this as a Christmas present, perhaps send them a kit, and then they can do the course over the Christmas holidays with their kit, then I can do that for you too. So just let me know. So there we go. I'm building a slight curve here. So I would be using the former in here just to make sure I've got it just right. So the main tips for today is keep an eye on your stitches. Make sure that they stay nice and tight. You don't start getting loose stitches, loose cane. Don't pull too tight if your cane gets dry, because it will snap and break, and that's tricky. Go back over yesterday to see how to replace your next bit, but you basically thread, when this gets low, you thread your new one right the way through, and then you just tie both ends in. And again, you'll find your own way of keeping it secure. So it's all practice. And I think that's it. I think that's enough for you to see today. But I hope you will just get some time today, sit out in the sunshine if you can, and just let's make a whole load of amazing baskets to save our bees. So I will see you again on Monday. I'll be keeping an eye in the group. So if you have any questions, if you put your pictures up, I'd really love to see them. And I'll be putting up some pictures of mine as I progress. And I look forward to seeing you all again on Monday morning, and I'll show you how to finish off your skep. And then Wednesday, I'll be announcing the prizes. So the prizes, you could win a free course. You can win a voucher off my naturopathic beekeeping course, and that starts in January. So again, that could be another good gift for somebody. And yeah, so I'll be announcing them on Wednesday during the webinar. So I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Just enjoy it, just experiment. And if you find that you do something and it works, let us all know, because that's how we all learn. And this is an old traditional skill that is almost lost. It's almost extinct. There's, 10 people who do these, regularly. I think there's only a couple that do them professionally in the UK. So let's bring it back. Let's have it as a great skill. In these times of lockdown, who knows when we could use this skill. So let's make our straw skeps for our bees, and I will see you on Monday. So think about what prize you want to win and what you're going to do to win it. So just share away. There's no right, no wrong. Just share what you're doing, and let's fill up this group with pictures of straw skeps. So I will see you on Monday. Have a fabulous weekend, and keep in touch over the weekend in the group. I'll be popping in to see how you're all doing. So thank you very much. Have a great day. And I really hope the sun is shining with you, because it makes such a difference. Okay, bye.